Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome back to another session of this series on hard advice on death and dying. And congratulations for coming to session 4. We only have one more to go. So shall we just go ahead then and start with our prayers? And just also thinking that we're putting our energy for the next hour or so into listening and learning more about this subject. Okay, so we first offer this mandala. So to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or if you want to think of a spiritual person or being that you have faith in, making sublime offerings. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idang Guru Rana Mandala Ganuyatayami. Then we take the refuge and generating bodhicitta with these lines, setting a good intention. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. And right then, so for us to set a good motivation to listen to the talk and to remember death and impermanence and to feel that there is great benefit to have a good mindfulness of death. So as we had come across those lines I had quoted, the end of meeting is separation, and the end of life is death. And by being mindful of these examples and descriptions on impermanence, then we resolve to make the best use of our lives. So we have already covered the 9 round or the 9-point meditation, remembering death. And just to give a quick summary here, that the first one was, what was it? Death is certain, yeah? The time of death is uncertain. And at the time of death, nothing can help except the Dharma. And we spent quite some time going through each of these points on how our lifespan is definitely finishing up, and that we look at the nature of our own bodies, that due to all the causes and conditions, we are really very fragile creatures, and that there are many causes for our demise. And that even at the time of death, if we look around to those who surround us, if we are fortunate enough to pass away in a natural way, then none of those beloved people and none of our beloved objects of possession can go along with us, and not even our body. And therefore, at the end of that, then we come to this strong conviction, if we can, that it is really important to live our lives meaningfully and to practice the Dharma while we can. So I've also just put a bit more cheery looking, what do you call it, wallpaper. Well, today we're going to get quite a lot into it. One of the things we're going to cover is the death process itself. So if you have not come across that, then I will be taking you through it. But first, when we're really thinking that, yeah, it's worthwhile, I would like to engage, committedly to spiritual practice, especially in our community here, to practicing the Dharma, then what should we do? So I've mentioned from the beginning, I think it's maybe something that Lama Zopa Rinpoche, had used very frequently. Perhaps others use the term kindness, living in kindness, whatever we want to call it. The good heart is key, expanding our heart out to others. And the Dharma term for it, is bodhicitta, the Sanskrit word for the mind of enlightenment, which is a really vast and profound mind that goes beyond, what we kind of confine usually our minds to thinking in a very small way. But, actually we really give ourselves that chance to develop to our fullest potential, then that mind of enlightenment is a tiny little seed that all of us have, right? And to quote Rinpoche again, Lama Zopa, a good heart allows us to die without fear. I had mentioned that some weeks ago. Yeah. And so here, when we are going into the subject of having mindfulness about death, it is to train ourselves so that at that time, we should have no regret, and we should have no worry and no fear, or very, very little. All right. So to go into that further, then today I'm going to present the 5 powers. I did mention this in the earlier course that I taught, but here in terms of the dying, meditation on dying, then Rinpoche explained that the 5 powers are in a different order from before. So we'll go through that now. And then after that, also we'll talk a bit about purifying. So let's start with the 5 powers, which really, because I read through my notes also, and, kind of think of how I should present this in a way that is kind of easily acceptable, or, that we feel that we can take it on and not find it that we would be kind of deterred by it. So here really we're talking about the power of transforming our own mind. And just like I mentioned last week, or maybe that I've been mentioning, that it's about taking care of our own minds while we can. So in taking care of it, then of course we're seeking to improve the quality of our experience, right? And therefore to look at various methods for transformation. And in Buddhism, then the most powerful one is to transform our mind as close to bodhicitta as we can, which I've just introduced here. So as we go through these points, then let's look at it as in terms of planting a new garden where you kind of set your little plot and you put in the seeds, but before that you would have to remove any weeds or things that are not going to help the planting from that field. So which gives us the first one, which is the first of the 5 powers, is what I'm referring to, is the power of the white seed. So in Buddhist terms, there's a kind of a lot of reference to karma in terms of black and white. I mean, white in terms of the brightness of it, then the light, the light in it, and black meaning the darkness side of it. So that's kind of more in terms of what that analogy is about, right? So the power of the white seed is about really, how we can go about accumulating merit as much as possible, doing all the different kinds of practices that will help us to accumulate merit. And why do we need merit? I think I might have mentioned maybe here or somewhere else, but just to come into this life with this human rebirth and with all the good conditions and being able to meet Dharma and to learn about death and dying, really takes enormous merit, and it's due to the good merit that you created in the past, whether in this life or another life before this. And as we go along in life from the time we're born into this life, and we're constantly using up the merit accumulated from previous lives. And also, in this life throughout our days, because of our own ignorance and our own, kind of obscured way of living and thinking, then we accumulate negative karma as well. And therefore, we quickly use up whatever past good merit that we had. And therefore, we should think just like if, say, you have a bank account and your money starts to run low, and then you would go and take a job or something, right, to try to increase what you have in your bank account. So similarly, we should increase our store of merit. So also just to mention here that how does this merit come about, right? So when we perform actions of generosity or by living in morality, this really is creating the cause for achieving another human rebirth in the future. Or even if one have those aspirations, then to be reborn in a pure realm or a heavenly realm, whatever term that you're comfortable with, a kind of godly, heavenly kind of realm. However, the causes for being reborn in a good human rebirth, or what we want to refer to as a perfect human rebirth with all the good causes and conditions for practice and for listening to the teachings again, is through living in morality and in the practice of generosity. So therefore, then now we're talking about being mindful of death. Then the power of the white seed is about engaging in the practice of giving as much as possible, with the thought that at the time of death, we would want to let go of all our material possessions, with either the either the actual thought to give our possessions away, or to have that intention that you don't want to keep anything, and that they are to be passed on to others for their use, for their benefit when we die, right? So in the context of Buddhism, in the context of Dharma, then of course we have the objects of refuge, right? The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? We refer to this as the three jewels, or the three rare sublime ones. This is what Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like to refer to as. However, we can just say the 3 jewels. And that's one of the reasons and the motivations for presenting offerings as well. If you are already doing practice at home, or if you visit your neighborhood center, FPMT center or temple from time to time, then we have an altar set up with good offerings, beautiful offerings presented, such as water bowls and plenty of lights, different kinds of illumination, whether it's in the form of candles or electric lights. And why we burn incense and put food and cookies and chocolates and stuff like that, why it's all there. It's not like Buddha is going to actually taste it in that sense of like, oh, yummy chocolate, but from outside we're offering the best that we can in terms of all the senses, right? Smell, sight, taste, touch, and so on, right? And therefore, by making lots of offerings like that to presenting on an altar to the Buddha, representations of Buddha, and then the Dharma in the form of precious texts and stupas and things like that, then we are remembering the kindness of Buddha. We're remembering the kindness of the Buddha. And if we have made a connection with a guru that we really are close to and we rely fully upon, then we should think that we're also making offerings to our guru. And because they are very powerful objects, then the merit accumulated with respect to these objects, is much more powerful in that sense. And that's one of the reasons, for doing this kind of practice. And you might be saying, then why are they so powerful? What's this about, right? So powerful in the sense of that, Buddha is one who achieved enlightenment, and we can just think, for example, of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of our time, through the example that he gave us through his life and his passing away into parinirvana. And he was one who gained enlightenment, and one who has achieved enlightenment is free completely of all suffering and has transcended that suffering. And that's why we say gone beyond sorrow, which is what nirvana means, going beyond sorrow of suffering, right? And through those attainments, through those qualities, then one who is a Buddha has perfected the power of prayer. So whoever makes prayers to someone who is an enlightened being, then the strength of the merit is really inconceivable. So therefore, that's a way of making offerings, and in that sense, by making offerings, then we are making that practice of generosity active, right? We're actually doing that. And for those of you who are also familiar with some of the practices that we do in pujas, then you know that we also visualize offerings. It doesn't just have to be physically there. For example, if some people don't have much means and they can only just offer something very simple, like one lotus lamp or a few bowls of water. Some people don't have much, isn't it? But what even those who don't have much physically, they have their minds, and we can imagine and our imagination can transform what is small into something huge and multiplied and as sublime and beautiful as you want it to be. So yeah, there are those different choices, and making those offerings mentally is as wonderful as being able to do it physically, right? So then also on a general level, by wanting to perform charity, giving things away, then we let go of our attachment and our clinging, isn't it, to the stuff that we have, because we do get attached to certain of our things. And so if you have to give it away, or you think that I'm eventually going to give that away because I can't take it with me, then you start to practice letting go of that attachment to whatever it is, right? And also then, because one usually, acquires a certain thing, buying it or whatever, someone gives it to you. It's something that, when you receive a gift, you feel so happy and pleased, like, oh, this is wonderful, this is just really what I wanted, thank you so much, I love it, and then that actually increases our own sense of happiness, right? That and joy, pleasure that we get. And it shows also that we cherish our own happiness very much. We cherish that feeling of getting something that we like, in that it brings us satisfaction. And if we have certain desires, then that helps to satisfy our desires, right? However, these are some of the things that we're trying to subdue, as we practice our training in mindfulness of death, that, we shouldn't cling to these things so much, because none of it can go with you, right? So I thought, anyway, this is what the idea of, the power of the white seed means, is to accumulate merit in that way, and to think of methods that we can develop in ourselves to be generous, be good-hearted, and I think people generally are very kind-hearted in that way, that when something bad happens to other people, like you hear about disasters, or people losing all their possessions, wherever it happens, then communities really work very quickly, isn't it, to raise money and to put together donations to send to help those in need. So we can call to that kind of natural inclination that we have to want to help others, and think of how we can use that more when it comes to, even when it's not a time of disaster or great need, that even under ordinary times, circumstances, we could still look at letting go of things that we are attached to more and more as the years go by. And in that way, then we let go of our attachment. So I have heard that, in monasteries from, Tibetan times, and even these days in the re-established monasteries in India, like in South India, which they have already been established for decades, right? That there are elderly monks, because this was told to us by someone who was from a monastery rather than a nunnery. So there these elderly monks, and they kind of know that that their own time is near or that they might die soon. And then they do really take this seriously of starting to give away their possessions. And it's not like they own a lot, but like books or whatever it is that they have, maybe their statues or other holy objects, and they start to give it away. So there's the story of, it's not a story, it's a actually happened, but I don't know who the person is. So of an elderly monk that thought that he was going to die. And so some weeks before, he already started to give away his stuff. And then he thought that maybe a few weeks later, he was going to pass away. But then the few weeks passed and he didn't pass away, and he was still very much alive, but he had given everything away. So that's kind of a funny story that, yeah, that anyway, he already got himself all set up. So, yeah, so that's an idea of, people actually do practice this. Okay, so that's for the first one. Let's carry on then. We have next, number 2 of the 5 powers, the power of intention, which is about having a good, pure motivation, developing the power of a virtuous attitude. Even if it's not up to the level that you're ready for, like generating the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, but at least, to start step by step by practicing the good heart, right? So I'm just going to remind of some lines that I read a few weeks back, these words from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Every day think as you wake up. Today I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others. I'm not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. So this is by way of, if you're thinking, what kind of motivation should I set in the morning when I wake up? Well, this is an excellent one, to kind of remind us that we should really practice throughout the day and try to keep a close eye on our bad habits, as much as we can, right? And also, in this regard about setting a pure, good intention in our everyday lives, then of course it helps to protect us from, kind of getting upset over things that happen by the way throughout the day. And also mentally, just reminding ourselves to keep calm and to remember that our goal is to have peace and happiness, and that if we kind of allow something to upset us, that's stealing that away from us. And then in this regard, if we're thinking long-term, in terms of mindfulness of death, then one can also think of things like healing our relationships with others. If there are people that we have not got along with, whether it went this way or that way or whichever way, and if we feel that would disturb us, then we can think of doing something to patch up those relationships. And even if you don't actually have the opportunity to see that person anymore, see them face to face, but mentally, you can reflect on that kind of forgiveness or letting go or sending, kind of healing good energy, to let go of that particular rift or conflict, right? So this comes from, because this course of Heart Advice on Death and Dying is actually based on the FPMT program. And so Venerable Sangye Kadro had a big role in designing the materials. So she mentioned one author who seems to have a connection with Buddhist tradition. There's a book called Facing Death and Finding Hope by Christine, I guess you pronounce it as Longacre. I don't know if you've heard of it. Christine, Longaker, Facing Death and Finding Hope. And so there's some kind of points that she brought up on what one can do, right, in helping to be mindful of death. So this comes up in that list to heal relationships, which I thought is practical and makes sense and is about, actively wanting to practice compassion, right? And to learn to cherish others or to open one's heart out in that way. And if not about healing relationships, then it can be about building relationships then. Building relationships that are based on good values, good principles, valuing kindness, things like that, right? So that's the power of intention. Yeah. Then we'll go on. The third one is the power of destruction. So I better clarify about destruction. So actually, the one that Lama Zopa Rinpoche had suggested was the power of blaming the ego. However, I'm taking it a little shorter. So the power of destruction, meaning destroying our own self-cherishing, right? Because here the 5 powers are helping us to develop a more compassionate, kind of way of life, isn't it? So destroying our self-cherishing, because as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, that, we're usually just concerned with our own happiness on what we want, what we need, what's good for me, and to protect this very vigorously as we go about our lives, right? So in this sense, then to turn that around and to see that, this is our habitual way of thinking, that let's say, well, if things are going well, then we're happy, right? Like I talked about the worldly concerns before, that, you're very happy when someone gives you something, and then you're really not happy when they take it away from you, right? And our instinct, when problems arise, big or small problems, is that it's not, the usual thing to put the blame back on yourself. Our blame usually goes outward to some object out there, whether it's another person, another living being, or some phenomena out there. We blame the outside world, and we don't really say that, oh, the problem might come from me instead, because of my own perception, my own karma, and things like that, right? And this is just really a natural thing that we all come into the world with. It's not like, oh, you're just pointing out there to someone else, oh, only you have that, I don't have it. It's very natural to us that we come into this life with a very strong, solid sense of I, of me, And this is what ego is, isn't it? It's just having this very strong sense of the I. And due to that, then the I is not capable of anything bad, you know? The I is all good. So the bad has to come from somewhere else, right? And therefore, you know, when something happens that is we regard it as a problem, then you know, we get angry, upset, or sad, or whatever, and then it brings up a whole range of negative emotions and thoughts, and what it does at the end is it disturbs our mind. You know, it disturbs our mental peace. You know, then there's no more peace because we're upset, right? So then this idea of the power of destruction, when we apply it, that is about being able to put the blame on our own self-cherishing ego and to destroy it. So that's why it's called the power of destruction. And how do we do this? Then the antidote is, of course, at the highest level, it's bodhicitta, right? That all beings are the same as myself in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And that if I take away my own suffering, then I should take away all their suffering as well. So, but you know, to get there, then we start with loving kindness. We start with compassion, and just really look at whether it's possible to cherish others as well, and not just people that we're close to and we like, you know, our favorite people, but to extend it to people that we don't know and people that we don't like so much, right? So that's the power of destruction. So we've had 1, 2, and 3, and that goes next into number 4. So this is the power of prayer. Usually when we talk about the power of prayer, then if we're not looking at the subject of death, then it goes higher on the list. But here it's it goes to the bottom of the list. It goes to number 5, but here we put it at number 4. Sorry, just getting it all with the anyway. I don't really think it's critical. You know, when I give you the homework list at the end, I'll have this. I have this typed out and put in there as well. So the power of prayer is highlighting the importance of making single-pointed prayer for our aspirations, to realize, to achieve those aspirations, and to make that a regular practice in our lives, and therefore, you know, to make those prayers daily, or even for certain prayers, you know, like say if you've taken refuge, then you know you have to take refuge a certain number of times throughout the day, right? So in the same way, then if we talk here just generally about the power of prayer, then we should turn it into a regular practice. And of course, then the teachings say that it is the best to pray with a bodhicitta mind, right? Not just to give happiness to all beings, but to have the courage to take upon ourselves all of their sufferings, and to be able to lead them to enlightenment. And that's why we recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer when there's a class or when there's teachings and those kind of occasions. But also if we do a daily practice, then, you know, we also recite these prayers to remind ourselves, isn't it? You know, and also just putting really good imprints into our mind, right? And then, of course, when we're making these prayers, then we should do it sincerely and mean it. And you know, initially, sometimes, like even myself, you know, ages ago, and I was very new, and I felt that, oh, I've got so many of these prayers to do, and then I'm in a hurry, I need to go to work or whatever it is. And then we just like, oh, blah, 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 recite. Okay, we get it through. We need to go somewhere else. And so we don't really put much, thought or intention into it. However, like if we really start to see that there's real benefit, and it's really so meaningful, and then we start to get the real taste of it, the real essence of it, right? So then that's one kind of level of prayers, right? To pray with good intentions, with refuge, with bodhicitta, with the wish to benefit others, even to say, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering, and so on. Or, to make a prayer, to always meet the Buddha in all future lives, to be able to meet the teachings. And if we have a connection with a guru, with our spiritual guide, or if, from another spiritual belief, then, you also want to pray to be able to meet with your guru again in all future lives, right? So that is the power of prayer. And then you can think that if you do have a daily practice already, then you're already doing this part, and therefore by knowing that it's part of the five powers, then we should take comfort and feel that it is really something important to continue doing, right? And then the fifth of the five powers is the power of familiarity or habituation. Both mean the same thing, means getting used to it, training constantly and getting used to it, and developing our mind more and more in that sense, the masters have said that everything becomes easier. There's nothing that doesn't grow easier with familiarity, isn't it? I mean, we can easily do that for many other things that we regard as important in our daily lives. So why not practice the power of familiarity when it comes to developing our minds, training our minds in compassion. We can do it for things like sports, exercise, that, I've got to go to the gym every day at this hour and do my, what is it, 10,000 steps a day? Yeah, people do that, the 10,000 steps thing. So if you're going to do 10,000 steps, then you can also do 10,000 moments of like training your mind in compassion, right? So yeah, if we are looking forwards, to the end of this life, then, and that we want to depart with a happy, virtuous mind, with a peaceful mind, then it's important to put in the training before that time comes, because we also learned that we don't know when that time comes. And therefore, if we have everything ready, then it will definitely be to our advantage, right? And also, to think not just of planting the good seeds of compassion, of kindness, or also of developing wisdom, isn't it? Because one of the key aspects of Buddhist practice is developing our mind of wisdom, which is relating to emptiness. And therefore, if you've already learned about emptiness, then that is also a very important part of our taking care of our minds, right? To be able to look at things as being empty of existing truly or inherently, isn't it? And then to also just remind ourselves that if we keep familiarizing in this way, then we'll see that after all, this is an impermanent state, and just as Buddha taught that while we hold on to permanence, it's actually a state of impermanence that we are cycling ourselves through and going round and round into coming from the past of a beginningless extent of past rebirths and into a beginningless future unless we do something to change that, right? And then to just apply ourselves with whatever we have learned, as I said, planting the white seed, practicing generosity. So if you're not comfortable with that at the beginning, because this is very difficult to do, but with familiarity, then it gets easier, right? To be able to give things away, like Christmas is coming, it's the season for giving, but that doesn't have to be the only season for giving. For Buddhists, we have very special days throughout the year, which we observe as the Buddha's special days, and there are merit multiplying effects, where as I explained before, by the power of the Buddha's practice and virtue and prayers, then the merit accumulated on those days is extremely powerful. And so we might want to use those days where merit multiplies 100 million times, to use that to do more on those days, right? Then there's also this idea that, when we talk about, how do you say, trying to eliminate our own self-cherishing and to reach our hearts out to others more and more, then, one way to think about that is that, let's say it comes to a time that one is sick, or even if one is going through a difficult patch, that while we may start to feel sorry for ourselves in those situations, but if we start to think that there are others, by the hundreds or thousands who suffer much more than us, who have really lost everything and are struggling, then, and to feel that, how may they, to pray that may they be able to overcome that struggle very soon. Then in that sense too, if we familiarize with that, then that is to our own benefit in the end, right? Because that changes our own mind. And then for this part here about, thinking to when one actually does pass away, if one passes away in the natural way. This is advised by, Lama Zopa Rinpoche in the books that are published on dying, is that one should, and also it's in the Lamrim literature, that one should lie on the, when I say Lamrim, Lama Tsongkhapa, lying on your right side and passing away in the same, going to sleep in that way. This is how the Buddha passed away into nirvana, is lying on his right side. If you have seen images, or if you've visited Kushanagar, where the Buddha passed away, and there's a huge statue, the Buddha lies on the right side, with his legs are stretched out, and then his right hand is under his chin, like that, cheek. And then they say that also you put the little finger to close off your right nostril, although I find that pretty tricky, because we use a pillow when we sleep, isn't it? So anyway, this is at least just lying on the right side, as a habit. And then in that sense, then physically, that's the posture. It's called the lion's posture that the Buddha took, but also in your mind, just remembering the Buddha as one passes away, if that's possible. Of course, sometimes it's not really possible, but at least you can think that that's what you're doing. And then ideally, it says to face the West. So of course, this is not also always possible, but to think that one is facing West. Why? Because that's facing towards the Pure Land of Amitabha. If one has any interest in going to Amitabha's Pure Land, that's one of the different Pure Lands in Buddhist teachings, where the Buddha Amitabha resides, and where it is said that one is able to easily practice while in that Pure Land with more concentration and less distractions or things like that. So then one has that aspiration that, one's going to pass away and to reach Amitabha Pure Land. It could be any other Pure Land that you have an interest in, or at least to just think, I'm passing away just like the Buddha did, and remembering the Buddha and wishing, or the Guru, and wishing to return in another precious human rebirth. So I'm just repeating to you what is in the books, right? And so that would wrap up the 5 powers. I wanted to just bring up, when we're talking about prayers and all that, it's kind of a nice synchronicity. I find that sometimes when I'm going through certain of these topics, and then something pops up that affirms it for us, that recently there's some studies showing that the science has done research on prayer, and it's actually very, they have proof now that it does something to your brain in a good way, and that it seems to change your neural pathways in the brain and affects it in a positive manner. And that also, doing certain forms of meditation helps to develop your frontal cortex and increases the sense of focus and peace and calm and all those good things. So I'm thinking, like, when it was talking about the meditation part, because it said that it was not just about sitting still and mindfulness. It was more than that, like really having prayer in it. So I was thinking that would fit in with our practice of analytical meditation, where we constantly bring something to mind over and over again. So that should be encouraging, right? Okay, so we've been going through for a great part about the 5 powers, a bit longer than I thought. So I'd like to, because I want to go through the death process today. So maybe just an overview of this next section, which is on purification practice, right? So because I've been talking a lot about developing all the good qualities, the good heart, practicing well, and utilizing our good merit. And the part that we do need to look at is, what about all the stuff that we did that we might regret and wish that we didn't do, right? Or that will bring more pain and suffering, which is talking, of course, about negative actions and their results. Actions and karma. Karma means action, right? Action means karma. So that's what we're on. And karma has the multiplying effect and the definitely will have an effect unless something is done to eliminate it, to reduce its power. And therefore, purification practice is important and helps with that. So, because we otherwise it stays with us and it's not purified, and travels with us as we carry on to future lifetimes and has suffering results. And also within this life that, sometimes people pass away in quite a painful way, with painful memories coming in, and not much peace, being very disturbed. So therefore, purification is important. And you may already, some of you may already be familiar with the 4 opponent powers, which are practiced together with doing prostrations. The practice of doing prostrations to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, while reciting certain prayers, the confession to the 35 Buddhas and the 7 medicine Buddhas. These are confession practices, confession of negativities, and bringing to mind, along with it, the 4 powers, right? Just reminding that in that verse from the foundation of all good qualities, that after death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So whether it is virtuous or non-virtuous or neutral, the karmic results are imprinted in one's consciousness, right? So therefore, by applying the 4 powers regularly, then we can gradually weaken the effects of the negative karma. And I'll just go through it briefly here, right? The 4 powers, what are they? The power of refuge, refuge meaning entrusting oneself to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or to your spiritual belief, right? So, the kind of power of entrustment. And then, because like when we do prostrations, we do it in front of an altar, isn't it? Because the altar has the representations of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then the second one is to have the power of regret. So regret is not the same as guilt. Regret is just recognizing that whatever negative deed done was not right, was wrong. It only produces unhappiness and suffering. It does not lead to more happiness. And that therefore one should express appropriate level of regret for whatever one had done, even if you no longer remember it. Because when we do these 4 powers, of course, you can call to mind something that happened yesterday, or last year or something. But there are things that we've done throughout beginningless rebirths that we don't remember at all. So when we bring to mind the power of regret, we can call to mind things that we remember as well as those that we don't. Then there's the power of the remedy. I chose all the R's just so it makes it easier. The remedy or the antidote. The power of doing something to counteract the negative action. So it has to be, of course, something pure and virtuous. And so the 35 confession Buddhas is one, as taught by Buddha. The confession practice comes from Buddha. It's in the sutras. Or reciting, and also, the practice of the 7 medicine Buddhas, right? Reciting Vajrasattva mantras. That's why people do that. It's to really purify, especially negative actions, accumulated when one has taken a guru and doing some practices in the tantric stages, so to purify that. To meditate on emptiness, because in emptiness we really see how things exist. And then there's also many powerful mantras to recite that help to weaken or even eliminate, negative karma. We'll talk a bit more about some of those things next week, which is going to be our final session in this series, right? So therefore, that's just going over the four powers. And I do want to go into the process of, oops. Oh, thank you for typing that out. With Katie, with Venerable Katie.
Yes.
My old friend. Yes. Great.
Every Monday through Friday.
Right. She does a morning or evening meditation. Okay, and then let's look at how we die. Yeah. And then also what happens after. And some of this we will bring forward to next week's last session. So I'm going to take you through that, but it's necessary that I bring up a few concepts ahead of that explanation. So especially for any of you who are new to this kind of material, just give me a second. Okay, so basically we're going to look at the 8 stages of the dying process, or what is referred to as the 8 dissolving, right? Dissolutions. And in regard to that, then there are certain terms that are going to come up. So I'm just going to briefly tell you what they are. So I'm going to be referring to the aggregates. Maybe this is a little quick revision or an introduction, depending. That the aggregates refer to our physical and mental aggregates, which is taught in the the mind and cognition side of the teachings. So, the physical aggregates, mainly we have this thing called our form meaning the body, physical entity, right? The form, and included in form would be your senses, right? Your sight, taste, hearing, and all these things. And then based on that, there is also this idea of ourselves, the physical complex that we are, being made up of particular constituents. And this is not to do with astrology or feng shui or what, it's that, elementally, we have these elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. And that, for example, physically, you can relate to the physical side as being earth, because that is something that is tangible, right? We can feel ourselves in that way, right? So that refers to earth. And then, for example, to water, then we have fluids flowing through us, right? So in that sense, and then we have this concept of the sense basis and the functions, right? So with our eyes, that is a sense base, and using that sense base, which is the eye, the eyeball, and all of its necessary biological parts, right? We are able to see, isn't it? We are able to see and capture sight of an object, whether it is out there in the world or even within our mind. We also have an inner seeing or something. And then the other concept here is the idea of signs that occur that tell you that something is happening. And that is external as well as internal, what happens where nobody can see. And then visions that we have. And visions are internal and not something outward. So these are things that are going to come up. And then also that there is a big distinction here when I go through this between what is regarded as death in sense of what doctors, not just in Western medicine, but I'm thinking that even in certain traditional fields of medicine, that you like in Chinese medicine, for example, also in Tibetan anyway, you feel the pulse and all those things, and also in Western medicine you feel the pulse, right? So there's a difference in the idea of what is clinical death and what is death here in this process. Because in what the Buddha taught, it's not just a Tibetan thing, okay? That we have this system of the winds and the drops and the channels, the energetic fields that are kind of imperceptible, and these are very subtle. So subtle winds, subtle drops, and the subtle channels, energetic channels, okay? So these are some of the concepts to share here first. And then we're going to go through this death process and look at what the 8 stages of dissolution are. And to do that, I'm going to send you the chart, which I prepared when we finish. So you will have that for your reference. But I thought that, maybe it's helpful if you just sit back a little, relax. You're not going to meditate your way through it, but at least to just listen. And if you want to close your eyes, and just take it in that way about this process, if that is more helpful to you, okay? And I'll just take a bit of time now to go through these 8 stages, starting with the first one. And I will be going in that system of those terms that I have introduced. So starting with the first stage, which affects the form aggregate, which is a physical aggregate. So at that point, here we're talking about someone who goes through a natural process and able to observe, perhaps. However, it occurs to everyone. And however, if someone passes away suddenly, such as in an accident or in a violent incident, then these stages pass very quickly, and there is no time to bring awareness. So on the level of form, the limbs become thinner, the body weakens, one's sight becomes unclear and dark. The constituent is earth, and there is a feeling of sinking down. The related sense function is the eye, One can no longer open or close the eyes. The external sign is that the body loses strength and radiance. There is an inner vision of a mirage, bluish, silvery bluish, that arises at this time. The second stage is the aggregate of feeling. One becomes indifferent to pain or pleasure. It no longer matters, and one can no longer distinguish pain, pleasure, or neutral feelings. The constituent is water. The body fluids start to dry up and the mouth feels dry. The sense function is the ear. One can no longer distinguish sounds. An external sign is you can no longer hear the buzzing inside the ears. There is a smoke-like vision, like smoke that comes from a chimney. This is what appears. The third stage is the aggregate of discrimination. Discriminating in terms of being able to recognize or remember. Here, one can no longer recognize friends or relatives. If there are people around, they become blurs. It is the fire constituent. The body heat gradually ceases. The capacity to digest food ceases. The sense function is the nose. One can no longer smell anything. The external sign is that breathing in becomes difficult and weaker, and breathing out becomes stronger and longer. The inner vision is that fire sparks appear, or like seeing fireflies. It is an appearance similar to that. This is the third stage. On the fourth stage, it is the aggregate of compositional factors. One can no longer move the body. One's awareness of worldly activities and worldly success and their necessity ceases. The constituent is wind. Here, breathing stops. The sense function is tactile, tongue and touch. The tongue becomes short and thick and turns blue at the root. One can no longer feel rough or smooth sensations. The external sign is one can no longer taste anything. The inner vision is a flame, which is more like a dim red-blue light around a flame. This is what appears. At this fourth stage, This is considered clinical death. We continue. The 5th to the 8th stage, here it is no longer the physical aggregates because one is considered already dead in the clinical sense. It is the mental aggregates. It is one's consciousness. In particular, it is the subtle consciousness that dawns during these next 4 stages. The constituent is the mind of white appearance, the mind of appearance. In terms of the senses, it is now the 80 indicative conceptions which begin to cease. These are states of dualistic conception. They're subtle. The first 33 of the 80 indicative conceptions cease. There are no more external signs. It is internal. The winds in the right and left channels move upwards to the crown and enter the central channel. And this causes the subtle white drop at the crown to descend. The inner vision is a white vision, like very bright moonlight in autumn, or a very white sky reflected by snow. This is the 5th stage. At the 6th stage, it is the mind of increase, when the next 40 indicative conceptions cease. The winds in the right and left channels move down to the navel and sexual chakras and enter the central channel, causing the subtle rate drop at the navel to ascend. There is a red vision, like a clear red sky just before dawn. The 7th stage is the mind of near attainment. The final 7 of the 80 indicative conceptions cease. The subtle red and white drops meet and dissolve in the central channel at the heart. There is a dark vision, like a dark and empty sky. The 8th stage of dissolution is the subtle, clear light mind, and it is where actual death occurs. The white and red drops emerge at the upper and lower orifices, respectively, such as for a male, the red drop emerges from the nose, nostril, while the white drop emerges from the lower orifice. Whereas for a female, it is the opposite. These are signs that the consciousness has left the body. The inner vision is clear and empty. This is the stage at which yogic practitioners continue to meditate. And that brings us to the end of describing these 8 dissolutions of what occurs. Everyone okay? Can't see you, but I hope you're okay. Right. So that is describing the death process. And, we can have some awareness, generally of these things if we're observing another. And next week, we will be looking at some ways to help others at that time of passing. However, for ourselves, we can also start to have awareness that these are the stages that happen in a natural time of passing away. And especially on that aspect of looking at the different stages of dissolution, of having those visions of the mirage and the smoke and the fire sparks and the flame, then one practice is to go to sleep thinking that you're dissolving into the clear light of death, and that you imagine that you're starting to see these as you get deeper towards falling asleep. And so there's just a few things more in the time that we have today that I would like to cover. That what happens after that, right? So I said that at the 8th stage is when actual death occurs. So in the world, that according to different cultures and religious practices, then there's no waiting for that to happen. I guess maybe here in this forum, I don't really want to call out anything in particular, but typically then one identifies that a person has passed away, and soon after there is a cremation, isn't it? And it's put into fire. And quite immediately for certain religions, without waiting any length of time. In Buddhist practice, we do have what we call a wake, waking up, wake. We call it a wake, where, there's a kind of funeral preparation where someone lies in their coffin for up to 3 days, or sometimes 5 days for very wealthy people. Then it's up to 7 days, to have that person in their coffin before the actual funeral, and whether it's a cremation or burial happens. However, in some cultures, then there's no waiting, and immediately it goes into a cremation. Of course, sometimes due to the circumstances of the death, then there's things like putting in a mortuary, or those kind of things happen. So anyway, we can look more into those next week. But this is what happens. And then there's like sometimes actually the person, it hasn't died really, isn't it? There's stories of how people knock on their coffin, and then just in time before it goes into the fire. And just last month, a woman in Thailand, she was pronounced dead and brought to the temple, and they were going to cremate, and there was this knocking on the coffin, and then they opened, and she was still alive inside. So there are stories like that people have not actually died. Maybe they've just gone into almost a dying process, but they still had karma to come out of it. Okay. And of course, then one can tell that there are signs of death, and there's things like embalmment practices, and therefore no one's really going to watch whether the white and red drop emerges. So these white and red drops, I've referred to it as white and red drops. Lama Zopa Rinpoche calls it white and red bodhicitta. And actually, Lama Zopa Rinpoche displayed that. He he took 3 days in his meditation. I'm going to talk about that, about yogic practices. So he took 3 days in his meditation, and then and he was sitting. He was sitting. His eyes are closed, and he looked just like he was still around, and just doing meditation. And then when the attendants found that some red blood drops had emerged from his nose, and then that's the sign that he had really left his body, right? So so there are practitioners who use the death time for their meditation, their really ultimate meditation. Recently, I spent some time in Nepal. I was in Kopan Monastery. That's the image in my wallpaper is a few years ago with flowers blooming in spring. So, and then while all this was happening with the Gen Z protests, which you might have heard about in the news that was happening in Kathmandu, while this was happening over in the nunnery, Kopan Nunnery, this was during the rains, the monastic sanghas summer rains retreat, that a nun passed away, and she wasn't elderly. She was actually quite close to my age, and she was 60. She passed away, and she stayed in meditation for 10 days. And nobody expected this. She was related to the former abbot, Khenso Rinpoche Lama Zopa. She was his niece, and they had gone into exile from the same village in Tibet. And when Lama Zopa had become ill with cancer, that was over 14 years ago already, 14. Anyway, then she moved to Kathmandu from the countryside Nyingma Monastery. She moved to Kathmandu and continued staying in Kopan with another close friend, a nun. And nobody expected her to have this kind of long period in meditation. People from her same village who lived in Kathmandu had prepared different things for the funeral, like buying tea and bread and all that. And they were all set with a date, like maybe 3 days, and, then she would be cremated. But she just was in meditation, as in, and I went to visit because this was something very unusual. And even at Kopan, with the monastery and nunnery, it's hardly ever witnessed, and so I went to see and visit, and she was because she had passed away from cancer anyway, so there was a hospital bed but brought to the nunnery in one room, so it was a hospital bed, and she was partially inclined, so not completely flat, and that was really after about a week. And normally a body would be with the smell and starting to decay, but there was none of this with this nun. So it's really quite something to witness. And I was told that during that first week, her head, and people had taken some photos, the monk, tantric monk who went to check and see the signs and everything, he said that her head had turned turned this way, and then after a few days had turned the other way, and then turned again. So her head had turned a couple of times in the process of lying there in what would be termed as clinical death. But she wasn't really gone until at the 10th day. He said that there was starting to be some smell coming, and so therefore then they determined that that was when she had left her body. So, even for someone who looked like they were very simple, she was very quiet and simple, and nobody said anything that she did anything profound, except that she did a lot of her own spiritual practice, and she seemed to have a lot of faith in Lama Zopa. she asked when Lama Lundrup had passed away, and she had gone into that meditation of, passing away on his death anniversary. I mean, it was just really quite incredible. So that's an example that I was able to witness. So then after death, one passes into the intermediate state, and that's when the consciousness goes into what we call the bardo. And then that's for up to a period of 49 days before it definitely ends, and one will definitely take another rebirth into the next life. For practitioners, it's quite easy that one would take another precious human rebirth or go to a pure realm. For us who, go by this wish to be mindful and to start all these practices of remembering death, practicing things like the 5 powers and looking at transforming our minds, then if we eliminate all our worry and fear, then we also have that opportunity to move on to a good future rebirth. So that's taken us up to all our time, I'm afraid. And we'll leave all the rest of it for next week to tie things up and to talk about how to help ourselves and others at the time of death. Okay, and I'll be sure to attach my files here before I forget. What do I do? Oh yes, chat. And then we will do our dedication prayer. So just give me a minute to look for my file. So I'm giving you both the chart that we had meditated on, as well as this is the chart, as well as meditation and mindfulness practice for those who would like to do that. So you should get 2 files at your end now. Yeah. So remember to download it before you leave. Okay, so thank you for your interest, and think of how amazing and rare it is to listen to an explanation about the death and dying process, and to understand more about it and to dedicate these merits. So we'll recite our 2 prayers. Sheila will call that up. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Okay. All right. Thank you, and hope to have you all back with us for our final session next week. And have a good weekend, good week ahead, and do take care of yourselves, right? See you soon.